7:35 here. Bloom Daddy with you. 1-800-624-1170. If you want to check me out on Facebook, it's Bloom Daddy on Facebook. So everybody talking about Bill O'Reilly. The Washington Post citing sources close to the negotiation that Bill O'Reilly will make $25 million on his exit from Fox News. That's thanks to a new 3-year play or pay contract renewal he signed just last month. The contract terms apparently gave him 1 year severance should he be fired.
That's just a little more than what you're getting on your package.
A little bit more. I mean, not much, but a little bit more. You think he's guilty, though, right?
Yeah.
Why? Tell me why.
Because I think that there's way too many coming out. And here's the other thing. They're not suing for anything. No money.
Well, but you don't know if there's a book deal down the line either. You don't know the motivation here. I want to bring on Jerry Acuff. He's an author, speaker, and trainer, leadership expert. Jerry, good morning.
Morning, Bloom Daddy.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the big question right off the bat because everybody has an opinion and you're entitled to it. You think O'Reilly's guilty here?
You know, I don't know that matters, candidly. You know, I do think that in many cases the big issue is, you know, why did they fire him? They fired him because they had a major trust issue. I mean, they didn't trust that the advertisers would stay. They didn't trust that they wouldn't get more lawsuits. They didn't trust that employees would want to stay there if they continued to build a culture that created the impression, whether it was real or not, which it probably was, that you know, people weren't respected there. So you know, I generally think that you have to reserve judgment. But you know, another way to look at it is somebody used to say to me all the time, when two people tell you you're drunk, lay down.
All right. I've never quite heard that before. I might use that tonight, Jerry. Is that okay?
Listen, if 4 people tell you you're drunk, join AA.
All right, so what's next for O'Reilly and the network here in your mind?
Well, I mean, those are two separate questions. You know, for O'Reilly, who knows? I mean, I think his persona is big enough that he's not going to fade into the woodwork. You know, he's worth about $85 million based on what I've read, and now he's going to be worth $110 million. So it's not like he's got money issues. You know, he's been a best-selling author. I don't think that he's you know, going to lose all of his cachet. I think that there's probably somebody that'll say, look, if he could replicate a fraction of his success, you know, for us, whoever us is, you know, after a certain amount of time, I think they think that the American people are reasonably forgiving.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, Jerry, let's think about this. Brian Williams, blatant liar. He all of a sudden gets another job. Marv Albert is biting chicks on the back, pretending to be a vampire in a hotel room, dressed in garters. He's the voice of NBA basketball again. I think those are two cases right there where it shows you can pretty much do anything anymore, and it doesn't mean the end of a career.
Yeah, especially if you handle it well. The question is, you know, sometimes, you know, I did a paper in college, and one of the quotes I've never forgotten is said, "There's no greater force in humanity than that of an egotist let loose in the metaphysical ecstasy of pride." And the problem with people with large egos is you never know how they're going to respond. You know, if I were O'Reilly, you know, I would certainly look to put some distance here in terms of time, but I'd come out and apologize, if nothing else, for the fact that I'm sure to somebody over his career he said some things that he wished he didn't say. I mean, there's that one video of him where he, you know, goes ballistic on his staff because they didn't have something written. So, you know, all of us have done stuff we regret. And so I think anybody could apologize and say, look, you know, I'm not a perfect person. You know, I've done some things that I'm not proud of, and I've certainly said some things I'm not proud of. I think the American people like people who are remorseful, who genuinely appear to be sorrowful, because we all want a second chance. The larger question to me is, what does Fox do? Now, Fox in some ways I see it as potentially insulated from major damage because it is the singular place where if you are conservative, if you are, you know, uber patriotic, and if you are, or even patriotic, and if you are not exactly in love with political correctness, it's the place to go. And there is no other place to go. All of these other outlets, or not all of these, but many of these other outlets are the polar opposite of that. And so as long as they put really good programming on, and I think the fact that Tucker Carlson had outperformed Megyn Kelly in his short stint in her slot, I think gave them some confidence that he would be a viable replacement. I think the larger issue that they have is, number one, can they get the advertisers back? And number two, can they build an internal culture that enables them to have a great company? You can't have a great company, and I tell leaders this, and unless you've got a great internal culture, and you can't imagine that their internal culture is anything but damaged. Now, that requires great leadership to actually change that. The big issue here is trust. And, we talk about, when we talk about leadership, and I talk about it, I've written 3 best-selling books called The Relationship Edge in Business. And the whole idea here is that the way you actually succeed in life is you create trust. You get people who trust you. You get people who trust that you are going to be doing things that are predictably good. And when that happens, you're going to be successful. They've got a trust issue in a big way at Fox, and they got to fix that.
Talking to Jerry Acuff, author, speaker, trainer on issues related to leadership. All right, Jerry, we've taken the angle of, okay, Bill's guilty. What should he do? What if he's not? What should he do?
Well, I don't think it matters whether he's guilty or he's not guilty. He's got the same problem. The perception is that he did something that cost him, a $25 million a year job. And so I don't think that whether, he certainly can't prove guilt or innocence. Apparently the way these legal agreements are done, nobody can talk on either side. I mean, apparently there are some people who they don't have legal agreements with that are coming out and making claims. But, there's also the perception that sometimes they do come out of the woodwork when they smell the green. I think his issue is, he's got to appear to be, no matter what he's done or not done, it's not going to be proven. What he's got to do is to demonstrate to the American public, assuming that he wants the American public to have anything to do with him, which I'm sure he does. He's just got to demonstrate that he's remorseful and that he still is a viable voice. The second part, I think, is fairly, a given. I don't think he's going to have any difficulty to prove that he's a viable voice. What he's going to have to prove is that he's sorrowful for some of the things that he's allegedly done. Because look, you can't have 20 people that come out, and I don't know what the number is, and say all those things to where he didn't do something that was at least boorish.
Okay. I mean, the thing is, some of these claims, and I think this is the case with everything, Jerry, people can misconstrue or play it one way or another. As well as I do, there could be joking in a newsroom or in an office building, and everybody's in on it, and everybody's friends, but then all it takes is one person to get ticked off, and all of a sudden it's, well, they made this comment to me, and you can ask so-and-so, and then all of a sudden you pull in that other, well, yeah, he said that, but he said it, and it doesn't matter what context. All of a sudden, what I'm trying to say is somebody can make something out of nothing, and it happens all the time.
And they will. And
right.
So if I understand that, and I'm making $25 million a year, I watch every damn word I say.
Yeah.
And I watch who I say it to. The other thing I do is this. So, for example, he's got one issue here with a sort of an average worker, whatever you call office worker, and apparently his behavior to her was dismissive. Look, I'm a big believer that you have to treat everybody like they're important because they are. I mean, everybody has an invisible tattoo that says, make me feel important. And the worst way to make people feel important is to act like they're not important. And so, did he allow his ascension to this great stardom to impact that? Many, many, many stars do. I met Josh Groban at a charity event the first time he ever did anything major. And I remember standing there next to him after he had sung, and it was the first time I ever heard him. I didn't know who he was, and I said to him, can I give you some advice? He said, yes, sir. I said, you are going to be wildly successful, and you are going to be famous. But just remember, you're just another guy. And if you ever forget the fact that you're just another guy, no matter how successful or how much money you got, then you're going to find yourself in major trouble. And I think that's the message for all of us. We're just another guy. We're just another person. We're not any better. We're not any smarter than anybody else. We just got different issues. We got different challenges. We got different hopes. We got different dreams. The key for us is to treat everybody like they're important and build trusted connections so that if I do have a trust relationship with you and I say something inappropriate, I don't run to HR. I run to you and say, that was stupid. And you shouldn't have said that, and you hurt my feelings. And then we hash that out because you and I have that connection. And that apparently is not what happened at Fox.
Hey, Jerry, I appreciate your time today, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, Bloom Danny.
All right, that's Jerry Acuff, author, speaker, trainer on leadership.